Hey there. One of the topics I thought would be most helpful to cover, I get asked about quite often, is Microsoft Purview. Hope, please tell us about Microsoft Purview. So I'm going to tackle that today with a little bit of setup and info that I think is helpful to understand. My name is Hope Foley, and I've been helping customers in at Microsoft for the last a little over 9 years figure out what to do with their data. And most recently, I focus on education customers. So usually, when I'm talking to customers about any product, fill in the blank, any data product, I feel like they usually boil down to a list like this. Let me know if I'm missing any of these core questions, but I feel like a lot of times these are the most common questions that my customers really want to tackle. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to cover 1 through 3 today. Definitely doing a super high level skim so we understand the pricing. We can't understand the pricing without seeing a little bit of what Purview is and the things we're being priced on. So I'm going to try and do that as quickly as I can through an example. So, and I also wanted to make sure I'm covering a little bit of new info, teaser to stay around till the end. I just found out something last week that relates to pricing from the product team that I thought would be helpful to get out and share with everybody. So here we go. Microsoft Purview has been a very moving ground. The teams have changed, the directions changed. There was a time back when Microsoft, when Purview, Azure Purview meant just this middle area. I'm going to cover this middle area today, but part of the reason you might need to be more patient with your Microsoft coverage folks. They are dealing with the Microsoft Purview name encompasses a lot more ground. Microsoft Purview is meant to be a place to govern everything. Well, the folks at M365 on the right-hand side here, they've been dealing with different kinds of data and compliance side issues. So this might still tip into M365 places. It may also be places purchased through M365 folks. And then data security, your intra ID, identity, those can be covered by someone else. So be patient with your Microsoft folks. You might, if you say Purview, they might not know which person to go get. Folks like me are covering data governance, and that's what I'm going to cover today. So Purview is meant to be a governing ground for not only just your data. So it's a big place. It's been a changing place, and there are also pricing complications that come with these with those. So we're focusing on that middle pillar, and I want to talk through another change that has happened in Purview. This bottom area, and we'll go through and see this in the demo, this bottom area, the pricing structure starting January 6th, started prior to January 6th. This is what we had in the product before. So we were doing scanning of our data, pulling it into this kind of technical side of the fence and mapping our data. One of the changes that happened, and part of the pricing structure, was governance needs to happen at a higher level potentially than just, the data sources. And there's a big slant in the new product of Purview where it's meant to give you kind of an onion layered approach to roll up your data assets and govern them at higher levels, to set the rules, set the people that need to govern it, give them their grounds to govern. You may have heard data mesh technology, data mesh concepts, allowing a federated governance approach, allowing these different business entities to set the rules and have a business place for those. So that's what the new parts became. And in the new pricing structure, the part you used to pay for prior to January 6th becomes free. So that's a nice thing. You can get a lot of ground covered in just kind of seeing your data assets. But I'm going to tee up and talk through this. You'll see what these parts and pieces are, but I want to make sure to start and give you a sense of what the pricing looks like. So The pricing here, you can see the data map piece, and I'm going to go through an example of this. The data map piece is going to be free, included. Once you start governing assets, they will be 50 cents per unique governed asset per month. You know, a SQL table, for example, that could be a unique asset. And I'll explain this in further detail in the demo. And then there's also a data management processing unit. A lot of our stuff has, you know, an abstracted blah, blah, unit for compute power. This is essentially some compute power that can be needed for certain processes. And I'll talk through that in the demo as well. Cool. All right. Stop. Demo time. All right, demo time, my favorite. So I want to make sure I address the how do I set this up question, but I'm going to take a little bit of a shortcut through that one. I already have my Purview account set up in my Azure subscription that's appropriate for this. So you may need a little help from your Azure admin friends. And when you first set it up, it's going to guide you to pick just a certain region. It might be a little different than that Azure admin is used to because it's going to be based on your home tenant. Fabric folks might be familiar with this. It's kind of tied to M365 tenant places that crosses into the realms of needing some stuff in Azure, but it's still kind of on the SaaS side of the fence. So just as a heads up there. I'm going to go in here, you click in here, and this is where you will be doing most of your administration and Purview related. You'll be doing all your Purview related items within here. Here I am within here. I'm going to go to the data map. So the first step in setting up our Azure SQL database to do that data quality scan is we still need to do a data map, and we still need to scan and pull that metadata into Purview. So I'm going in here. I'm going to go to the data sources tab. We'll get into a bit more of this structure here tomorrow, but these are collections. I have various sources here kind of from a server high level set up to go into, of course, the prod area. And I'm going to trickle down with scanning into these other structures. But you can see here, I'm going to go into the Azure SQL one. You want to make sure I'm going to force you to look at the documentation. Haha. This here is the Azure SQL database documentation. There are going to be various different details based on the different data sources. Make sure you check this out. We have different options when you set it up at a data source level, and then you're going to set up scans. I already have one set up for the agriculture related data that I have. I'm going to edit this scan. So this is still in the free territory. This is what you used to pay for. And I'm going to go ahead and quickly run through the process to set up the scan. You want to set and scope out. This is where we're picking what we're going to scan metadata wise. So I can pick and choose for my SQL Server, which is usually serving up many different departments in my orgs. So I can quickly do this. I have this set to the rules I want. You want to make sure you go through this and set what you want to scan for. If you do the next system default, it has a lot more things that it's going to scan for. This is still free, but you want to be kind to your sources upstream. So you don't want to scan across the metadata for Bulgarian passport numbers if that's not something that you care to capture. So I have this one. I'm going to go ahead and quickly do this. I can also set this up to run on a regular basis. This doesn't need to be as fresh as your data, every row being inserted. This is when metadata changes. So make sure to set the schedule appropriately. Cool. All right, super high level, quick run through of setting up the data map and scanning and doling it out into those pieces out here called collections. I'm going to skip over here now and talk high level through what we can consume what we just did. I'm skipping over to the unified catalog. We're getting toward paid territory. Not into paid territory yet, but just as a heads up, we're getting there because we're getting over into this unified catalog area. I can still view my different sources and different types, and I'm going to quickly, we'll see a bit more of the consumption of this just to save myself a little bit of time here. This is what I can consume, the data asset. This is the view of what I just scanned. I've done a little bit of, I've certified this asset. But I can see quickly some of this. You know, it's hitting gender. This is actually cow data, so similar stuff going on there. And you can see some of the different lineage. But this is where the freebies cut off. I'm going to quickly jump over now and talk through what we mean when we're getting into something called a governed asset. So I'm coming over to governance domains here. Think of this as the way you need to roll your business. People say, how should I set this up? How should you, organize your house is what they might as well be asking me. So I'm going to go down to my agriculture. This is where that data is that I want to make sure I set the quality on. I have super important agriculture data. You can see here, there's a bit of an onion layered approach to this, but this is where we get into the business side and can set the concepts for our business, and we can start to give people the governing things they need and give you a way to kind of roll up things a bit higher than just a lot of different assets that you have mapped. So we'll get into deeper into all of these. Let me know down in the comments where you want to dive into next. We'll get into the roles tomorrow or in the next video, but here, this is where we're going to tip into paid territory. So disclaimers and, buzzy things that I haven't figured out yet. Watch that, I'm doing my hand gestures. I can pull into this is where we're pulling in that data that we mapped and scanned for free. Thank you, Microsoft. But this is where I'm pulling it in and saying, hey, I want to govern this. So I'm pulling this into a governance domain. This is tipping into paid territory. So this is where we tip into that governed asset, unique governed asset pricing. I can still, I can say the academics department can tap into my cow data, if that makes sense, may not. But I won't have to double pay to kind of hook that same cow data as a managed asset in there. I hope that helps to explain that aspect of it. We'll get a bit into data products a bit more into in the next video. I'm going to jump over to the data quality now to kind of tip into just making sure you understand that paid, that meter. So when you set up data quality, you first have to do the scanning that we already did. You start to have to pull it into those governance domains. And then once you have it kind of set as a data product, we're going to set up our data quality on that column. So I'm going to go into my agriculture SQL data and narrow down where I have this. The biometrics L3 table is where I have that super important data quality that I need to check for. So within here, this is where we're getting into that other meter. First, you're going to want to profile your data. So I've picked only a few columns. I want to keep my pricing down. I want to make sure I'm only picking and choosing what I need to scan and understand what's in this data first. We're going to profile it first to see what kind of mess is in there. And then we're going to be able to see this. So here's a view of what we've profiled. So you can see that at a high level. This animal column is where I'm going to check for that quality. I do not want they keep putting null values in there. They wouldn't let me restrict it on the source, so I'm paying the price downstream. But this is that column I want to really protect. This is where I'm going to set that data quality rule. I'll just quickly bring up this. These are the different types of quality you can scan for. Some cool stuff within here. I'll cancel that, but this is where I've set that data quality. So here we've set this particular rule to check for our empty and null values. This table isn't updated too much, so, and it isn't too bad. So our data quality score you can see here, but and I'll just quickly kind of show a little bit of the view. Everywhere you can see where I'm seeing that particular animal column, I can see that. But one thing I mentioned and teased up in the beginning, there was something that I learned last week. People that have had Purview before these new kind of changes that I mentioned started rolling out were familiar with something called the Health Data Insights. So this area here gives great reports to help you kind of see where things are going in your data governance. There was a toggle switch and a schedule you could use to set that up previously in the old portal. It's moved into the new portal here, and I want to make sure people see this. So you can set this within here. So I'm in health management controls. This is where I turned mine off for a little bit so I can save a little bit of my cost. You will see that it's enabled by default. This is something that the product team has decided it's going to be enabled by default to give you the benefits of it. And it's going to run daily. So the customers that have been using Purview previously, you may be familiar with this cost and you may have just assumed something would drop. This cost still exists here. The dial is moved over here. I want to make sure people are aware you can enable it or disable it. And you can set the schedule that is appropriate for you if daily isn't there. So cool. Something that I don't know that folks are as familiar with, so I wanted to make sure to cover that. I hope that helped to walk through that, but I wanted to pull up this slide a little bit again. I updated my slide to include the health control enabled, disabled, default settings, just to mention in pricing. We talked about the governed assets when things tip from free scans to view the data map assets to when they become a managed asset. So we went over that. And then we also talked a little bit very quickly about a data quality scan and the parts and pieces when this processing unit kicks into play. Okay, that was a whirlwind high-level tour. Let me know if this helped. I think this is a common question that I get asked from customers all the time. Purview is new to them, and I try and help people understand going through an example of these different meters and what they mean. So let me know if that was helpful. Thumbs up. Give me comments and below. I hope to keep bringing you more videos and diving deeper and helping explain things where I can. Thanks.